Welcome to the JEMS Report, brought to you by Clarion Events, Fire and Rescue Group, and the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. I'm Ted Lee, Editor-in-Chief of JEMS Magazine, along with Jeff Frankel, our Managing Editor. We will be bringing you industry leaders and subject matter experts for all things pre-hospital medicine. Today, very special guest for EMS Week Safety Day. Garrett Hedeen is the chairman of the National Association of EMT's EMS Workforce Committee and also an author for EMS Safety. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Ted. Glad to be here.
So why don't you give our audience a little bit of your background and kind of how you ended up on the workforce committee, and then, of course, segue into your passion of safety, because I notice there's a license plate right behind you that says safety. So obviously safety is a big deal for you.
I was surprised that was still available at the time, but yes, and since I moved, I get to keep it. So yeah, thanks again, Ted. And so I guess I'll start off currently. I'm a safety specialist with Austin Travis County EMS. Been in this role for right at a year and a half. Before that, and pretty much my whole rest of my life was in Indiana. Most recently, I was with IU Health Lifeline Bloomington in a manager position, kind of a chief officer there. Over a county service, we did all the 911 and interfacility for a county with about 7 ambulances. And then most of my time, I cut my teeth in Indianapolis. With Indianapolis EMS, previously Wishart Ambulance Service. Actually, I still work there part-time. I occasionally fly out about every month or two just to kind of keep my skills up, since I'm more of a civilian, non-sworn role here, so can't really work administration and on the truck. So I was also a safety officer with Indianapolis EMS for a couple years while they had that program, and also got to serve as the union president for a little while. So some definitely safety aspects with that. And as far as the workforce committee, it started, I would say, in 2011. I went to a big EMS conference out in Las Vegas, and I got there early and I saw these meetings going on. I'm like, this will be interesting. So I went to the NAEMT board meeting where I heard a couple of the folks that I had heard podcasts from. That's how I killed time. Listened to a lot of podcasts, and then I went to some of the committee meetings, the Health and Safety Committee, and then I'm like, this is kind of interesting. So went back the next year, and then I'm like, okay, now I kind of want to get a little bit more involved, and reached out to the president at the time, which I believe was Don Lundy at the time, and asked if I can get involved, and I joined the Health and Safety Committee. A couple years after that, it transitioned into the Workforce Committee. So in addition to all the kind of health, safety, wellness, we also started looking more at just general workforce, recruitment, retention, rural healthcare, rural EMS, and yeah, and then a couple times, once initially, actually, at the start of the workforce committee, I was asked to be chair, and then I stepped down when I went back to school and had a job change. I was just be on the committee, but then about a year and a half ago, I was asked to be back on as the chair of the workforce committee.
Oh, that's great. And thank you for your service. So the workforce committee, this is a pretty big deal. And you mentioned, several aspects that are of critical topic nowadays, health, wellness of the providers, recruitment and retention. I bet you guys are talking quite a bit about the needs of EMS for sure.
What? Everyone's fully staffed and everything's perfect.
Right. Right. The sun is shining. Everybody's fully staffed. Things are great.
This is fine.
So in relation to EMS week, and of course, Tuesday is Safety Day. What's the emphasis of this? Why is this so important? Why is it an important message to get out to the community about safety and how EMS relates to that?
I think it's, I'm not sure how the origins happened with EMS Week. I know a few years ago they started having the individual days, but I think safety is definitely important because it's something, frankly, EMS we don't do that great on. General industry has a lot of different programs and degrees. I just finished up with a master's in occupational safety and health, and everyone else in my cohort, I think there was one EMS person, but all the construction, manufacturing, et cetera, they have pretty well-designed programs. If we look at other public safety, fire has a great, fire department safety officer association. And, I think of Indianapolis, I know there's, I think, 3 safety chiefs on at any time for fire service. And it's very, very regimented. And EMS, a safety officer or anyone who's fully focused on safety and EMS, that's a pretty big rarity in our service. And it's funny, when I went to a kind of general safety conference, because I got a good student rate at the time in 2019, it was me and there's 2 of us doing safety officer for Indianapolis. And, I was just starting to learn, getting into the program about what, the safety numbers. And I'm like, oh, our OSHA injury rate is, 14. And I was talking to some other people at this lunch table, and they're like, whoa, you must have like 12 or 13 safety officers all around kind of doing all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it's just me and one other person. And, we're kind of transitioning away from that also. And, that was originally what I was going to do my research in, was looking at those OSHA injury rates, just so people can compare and look at it towards like different time off policies. But no one really understood how to even do those calculations, and that was just a huge hurdle. And also that was in the start of 2020, so things got a little bit crazy there. But I think just there are some trainings out there. NAEMT, we have the EMS Safety course, which is on its 3rd edition, and as you introduced, I helped with the authorship of that. And then there's also the EVOS, Emergency Vehicle Operators, which I think just came out with their 2nd edition, and then a new EMS Safety Officer course, which is more of a kind of an add-on to those who are starting to look into that. But, those are 1-2 day things. There's not that many big things out there. One that is out there that's kind of a hidden gem is the National EMS Safety Summit, which I've attended 2 or 3 times now, and last year kind of started helping out with some of the planning. It's a pretty not well known, unfortunately, because it has great national and occasional international speakers. That's usually in Denver, and I think it kind of started off more local in the Colorado area, and that's still where a large amount of folks are there from. But it's really good bang for your buck, so to speak. And usually Denver in April is it's kind of unpredictable, but you may catch a Rockies game or something. But it's a great time, and yeah.
So why the focus on EMS safety from an internal standpoint? We'll talk about externally here in a little bit, but internally, it's become very common, and it's a topic that is pretty widely known. The mental health, wellness of providers, especially post-COVID, has really driven this to the forefront. So, do you have any insight on where we're going with that and kind of the importance of that?
Yeah, definitely mental health is always a huge thing. We have a great, here in Austin, we have great peer support. We have psychologists on duty with kind of public safety wellness, and they're very open about letting folks off and mental health days. Yeah, my role is kind of a little bit more towards traditional safety, deal a lot with ambulance accidents. We definitely hit a few things every now and then. Luckily, nothing too bad. But yeah, I guess when you're looking at safety, you want to start off by, where are my people getting hurt and injured? And so we look at a lot of lifting and moving. Unfortunately, violence against EMS has been on the rise the last few years. So I'd say if you're starting off in a safety program, just look at your history and see, okay, where are folks getting hurt or injured, and then kind of start focusing on kind of narrowing that gap from what we may just see out there in general to what's a good service.
And how are you addressing those things when you identify that there's a potential issue or protocol procedure or just daily work that that might lean towards some type of safety issue?
Well, it is really looking at the incidents and the numbers, and you just find little commonalities and try to, peel back the layers and figure out what's a good corrective action for that. And, one thing that pops up to mind, like I said, we do a lot with our ambulance accidents. I remember last year about this time, we had 2 or 3 within about a month of incidents where the driver said they were looking at the MDT because their passenger, which was a new recruit, was having trouble kind of navigating this to see, is the scene safe or not? And then they're looking over and then they, hit a curb or something. Luckily, nothing ever too bad, but we're like, okay, aren't they getting this information with initial training? And we found out, it's just a brief introduction. So we kind of added a evolution to one of our training days, our driving around the city. And so instead, since we have people just in back chilling, doing nothing, we put them out in an SUV and they're navigating another driver's trainer. So they get practice kind of doing that navigation part and just, picking up on those little things. And then unless you're out there doing it or have a really strong safety committee, it's difficult to figure that out.
Other than the focus on the individual, making sure that the individual provider is safe, what are the other ramifications of safety protocols and procedures to the service or to the community?
Obviously, if a person is injured and they can't respond, obviously trucks are down. And then, last year we had a lot of injury time. We still had a few COVID related incidents, but to be frank, and it's publicly available, we had almost 10 years of time off of providers. And if you think about that, that's 10 full-time positions that if, if we're a little bit safer, if we had a little bit more focus on something, peel back that layer, that's people that can actually fill trucks and you're not paying overtime. And, occasionally have to shut down a truck or two because of time off, sick time, injured time. So just basically that availability for the county.
And then, of course, additional cost and salary, and if there's damage to equipment, trucks, things like that, additional cost for that. So it's pretty wide ranging about the impacts, what it could do to a service. I mean, when I was working, there were other services, in my areas that, were smaller services, and having, one ambulance wreck could, almost catastrophically affect that service, and the loss of 2 people and one of their resources, the ambulance itself, would really impact the overall safety of the community because of lack of response units.
Yeah, especially nowadays when, 2 or 3 years ago, you can maybe get an ambulance in a couple months, but, folks are waiting out there a year and a half, sometimes even longer. And,
yeah. So, shifting away from the services aspect in it and shifting towards the public aspect of it, how is EMS working towards safety? I mean, like the fire departments, they've always been well known for fire prevention. A lot of public service announcements, a lot of safety along those lines to where they've reduced the amount or the extent of fires. What's EMS working towards to try to help impact the medical response aspect?
Well, the big push the last decade or so has been the community paramedicine, mobile integrated healthcare, and I'm lucky enough again in Austin here to we have some great programs with different views on the quote unquote EMS loyalty program folks, and then leaving Narcan kits, and we have a pretty large unhoused population here, so we work with them. So I think anytime we have 3 or 4 folks on the street, and our community health paramedic responders, and also have PAs and MDs that are able to kind of, take care of those that really don't need the ED to fill up the ED with folks. And I think really I see that community paramedicine really being the fire, how the fire department has done fire prevention. That's more of the medical prevention.
What about programs like bicycle safety or helmet or child seat? Are you guys involved with those type of programs?
I think there used to be, before I got here, the child seat safety program, but I've seen some flyers. I'm not sure how active that is here, but yeah, definitely, yeah, preventing it before it happens is always the better approach.
So with EMS week being, safety day for Tuesday, what's kind of the message that providers can get out to the public about safety?
I guess just kind of looking internally and seeing what are you doing towards the safety of your people today, so we can help you tomorrow, kind of thing. So just, am I doing any type of safety training? Am I doing fit testing? We're really looking at these things. Do we have a safety committee? Just looking at these things to see how can I keep our folks, healthy and well, so they can help take care of you.
So, and we touched on this a little bit. What kind of impact do you think safety and these type of programs have on performance and overall retention of providers?
I think if an agency really, focuses on the safety of their providers, I think that's a welcoming environment that someone would probably much more be welcome to stay. If they're like, oh, don't worry about that. That's just a little unknown safety thing. That's just the policy. This is how we do it. And that's always bugged me when the whole, you do all this training, then you go out into the streets. Oh, this is the real way. I like when that's kind of a, everyone's bought in, so to speak. And when you have that safe atmosphere that really pushes on reporting of violence incidents, of any little injury, or hey, I rubbed up against that sign or something like that. If you have a good reporting culture, if you have that just culture approach towards things that, hey, we just want to make sure you're all healthy and ready to go. I think that's a great environment that people will likely want to stay in.
Right. Well, and then, back injuries, shoulder injuries, knee injuries, that culture of safety and performance and being more aware, keeps us, safe and on the job longer, instead of, a single injury taking somebody out, or, potentially the catastrophic injury that takes two or more providers, out of the service for an extended period of time. I can't imagine that many services would be able to sustain what you mentioned, that 10-year equivalent of people off. Of course, COVID changed the landscape of everything for us, and made us look at it very differently compared to what we had been doing. But I think coming out of COVID, that this culture of safety, health, wellness, mental health, being more to the front is really helping providers with the longevity of their careers. So anything else that you'd like to wrap us up with on the topic of safety?
I can't think of too much. Just I'd say get involved. Start talking about safety. I know it's sometimes I've had difficulty getting a good safety committee going, because sometimes it's not the the sexiest type of a topic, but that's where you just bring things to them and say, we've got to have representation from the field. That's definitely needed. But talk with the folks. What's concerning the people on the street? Is it fatigue? Is it mental health? Is it something? Are they having problems lifting from the ground to standing position? Are there tools that they may need? Hopefully, luckily, most people have electric cots and the power load systems nowadays, so that's helped out tremendously and extend a lot of careers, I know. Yeah, so start that just talking.
Right. Start talking to the field providers and get involved. Safety's, it's everybody's concern, and from top to bottom, it has to be something that everybody is engaged in and willing to take seriously. So I wanted to thank you for taking time out of your busy day with us. As we mentioned before, Tuesday being safety day, not only for EMS providers, but for the public, just bringing focus back to, how to be out there safely and do the job. So thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thanks, Ted.
All right.